Well, I want to take this time to welcome everybody to the 153rd Annual Battery A Portland Light Artillery Association dinner. Tonight, you'll notice that there's not a lot of soldiers in the building. The battalion is deployed to Qatar. Currently, if I remember hearing earlier, that they are currently at Fort Bliss. And should be in country sometime mid-November. We're videotaping the dinner tonight so that those that are deployed can partake in our celebration with them. We have a few guests that we need to recognize. Major G, who is the Rear Detachment Battalion Commander. We have Colonel Schmidt, former battery commander, former battalion commander. We also have a Brigadier General Stephen Beach with us tonight. At this time, if we have any World War II veterans, please stand. They're all gone. We lost our last World War II veteran recently, Colonel Jensen. Do we have any soldiers that participated in the Korean War? Okay, how about Vietnam War? All those participating in Vietnam, please stand. All those that served Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Iraq, Afghanistan, please stand. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to go through self-introductions.
Richard Peabody, Jr.
Wow, Rick Peabody.
Hey, come on.
I didn't recognize you.
David Robinson.
Jim Testa.
Ed Ward, 78 to 88.
Hub Mardog.
Steve Beach.
Gerald Ryder, 61 to 67.
I'm Colonel Dave Hawkins. I commanded the battalion from 86 to 89.
I'm Dwayne Brandt. I was a member of A Battery in the 1960s.
Staff Sergeant Rodney Clem, retired, Alpha Battery.
Specialist Karsner, B Battery for 12, 14, 17 years until I transferred to A Battery. I was originally an Echo Battery, 3rd Platoon in Fort Sill, Oklahoma on an 8-inch M10, 203 millimeter howitzer, and then I was also on as well as the 155 millimeter howitzer M109. Hooah!
Sergeant First Class Jerome Brian Ellis Person. Sergeant First Class Jerome Brian Ellis Person. Alpha Battery. Staff Sergeant McMillan, Charlie Battery.
Master Sergeant Retired David Bud Weiser, GOB. That's grumpy old bastard. I joined the 218th in 90, moved into maintenance, and stayed in maintenance all the time I was in the 218th. It was a good trip and a lot of fun in that. Oh, by the way, Person, wasn't it your birthday this week?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, a person's birthday this week, and so was mine. So, I'm 69. No, 68. I keep mixing it up.
John Cameron, I was Battalion S3 or S1 and S4 AGR.
Sergeant Major Jerry Crystal retired. I was First Sergeant A Battery for a while. Came to Battalion 82, left in 94.
Larry Sloatman. I came in here in '66, and I moved on in '02.
Jerry Westfall. I joined this battalion in 1956 and was an A Battery First Sergeant from 75 to 83 and retired as Sergeant Major in 89.
Pete Helzer, I joined A Battery 7 September 70, hung out for a long time, Battalion Motor Sergeant, First Sergeant to Headquarters Battery, and I love A Battery.
Gary Lewis, First Sergeant, retired. I was in Alpha Battery in the early to mid-90s.
I'm Roy Ackley. My father was in the National Guard in the A Battery from 1935 to 1941. And those were memorable years for him. I can always remember when I was growing up, he would say that the one thing that he liked about being in the battery was that everybody could be trusted. You could put your wallet down somewhere and you didn't have to worry about it. It would stay there. So I've been coming to this thing for about pretty close to 50 years. My dad started bringing me to this when I was pretty young. And he took a lot of pride in the battery. And I appreciate being here. You've sort of taken me under your wing as sort of your unofficial mascot, and I appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you.
Todd Ackley, and my grandfather was Edwin Ackley.
Major Sung Yun Ji, I'm the current battalion commander. I was in A Battery with Team Boat at Katrina in 2005. One thing I do want to express is how important this is and how special this is, not only being a Red Leg, but also being a part of Battery A. The lineage of the Portland Light Artillery is just incredible, and you'll hear about that tonight. Please talk with the other association members, the other visitors here. Take that advantage, because not all units get a chance to do that. So thank you.
Steve Schmidt, I joined the Guard in '91 in Alpha Battery and was able to be the FDO, XO, and a battery commander, and was able to get chosen to be a battalion commander, but the best time I've ever had in the Guard is when I was in Alpha Battery.
John Helzer, I enlisted into Alpha Battery, I commissioned into Service Battery, and I'm currently Headquarters Battery, and Service Battery Commander.
Sergeant Moss, Charlie Battery.
Sergeant Cook, Charlie Battery.
PFC Yandel, Charlie Battery.
Sergeant Bada, Alpha Battery, 2014 to 2019.
Staff Sergeant Patrick Dean and Alpha Battery 2015 through 2019.
Jason Roscott, 2009 to 2019, Alpha.
Specialist Hergert, 2014 to 2019.
Larry Nodurft, I joined the Guard in 1973, was in Alpha Battery from 88 to 90, and retired in 2001 as Command Sergeant Major.
Jim Rooney, I was battery commander of B Battery and A Battery, and also First Sergeant of Headquarters A and B. And anyway, tonight was the first night I was ever late.
Boy, now there's a real soldier right there, let me tell you, because I've seen him for coming up almost 50 years. I joined in 1970, Don Olson. I was happy to be a private on Gun 3 in A Battery, and then was foolish enough to go to OCS, but I met as a second lieutenant, like right in this corner, a fellow white hair that just getting a beer, you know, and didn't want to talk to him because I was, what, 22, 23, and he was an old guy. But he had been in World War I with Battery A, and he'd also been activated in 1898 for 90 days when Battery A went as far as Camp Bonneville for the Spanish-American War. And I didn't really pick his brain or talk to him a little bit. I said, well, you're an old guy, I just want to get a beer. But the best thing I ever, one of the fun things I did was command service battery, and I ended up staying 41 years altogether in the Oregon Guard. But I was recruiting officer for a couple of years, and I just want to tell you that if you're close to getting out, or you're thinking about getting out, or you know somebody that wants to get out, get them to re-enlist. It's not that hard. It's vital you stay in right now. I'm on a committee with Jamie Herrera in Southwest Portland on their West Point Service Academy announcements for Annapolis and their Coast Guard Academy, or not the Coast Guard, but the Air Force. Very few people are joining the military now, and the regular Army is like very few. You got to stay in. It's shitty at times. You get rained on, snowed on. It's never sunny at Fort Lewis. It always rains, you know that. It's never cool at Yakima, or it's either freezing or super hot. But stick around, because you can't operate a cannon with 4 people. You know, it doesn't work. You can't operate a gun battery with only 4 guns. You need all 6. You have to be a team, and you never learn teamwork like you're learning with the people right here that are on your left side and right side. So you men and women, ladies, do the best you can, as you always have, but be sure to look out for your neighbors, the guy or the girl sitting next to you, and stay in the battery. It's going to be one of the most rewarding experiences you'll ever have in your lifetime. And my best friend here, Kent Smith.
Thank you, Don. First thing I want to say is, as soon as I drove in the gate out here, Apocalypse is looking real sharp. So congratulations to all you that have kept it up and looking good, because I know a few years back it was not looking good, and we made an effort to clean it up and so on. So keep it looking good. Anyway, name's Kent Smith. After active duty Army, I got in the Oregon Guard, and that was 26 years of adventure. One of them was commanding A Battery in 1985. Is that right, Ed? 1985? Yeah, okay. And like Don said, and what I've said every year here, is that those of you wearing a uniform, keep wearing that as long as you can. You got an important job to do, and it really pays off when you get older later on and get that nice retirement. So keep it up.
About a year ago, the Sandy newspaper printed an article back in their travel section with a picture of me. And the title of the article was, "Everything I Needed to Know in Life, I Learned in the Field Artillery." I've had a rather successful life, I think. Some people have. I'm not Paul Allen, I'm not Bill Gates, but I don't do too bad for a high school dropout from North Portland. And a lot of the skills I used in business, I learned in A Battery. My first dinner was in '74, which was Roy Ackley's first dinner with his dad, Ed, who was at the Battle of the Bulge. And Roy's missed 1. I've missed 0. The best unit I was ever in, A Battery, 2218.
Cadet McKenna Miller. Specialist Campbell.
Cadet Hunter Carey.
Specialist Horn.
PFC Flounders.
Sergeant Forcier joined Alpha Battery in 98, retired in 2008, 34 years.
Specialist Altman.
Sergeant Pierce. Private Cornett.
Specialist Baker.
Specialist Shelton.
Lieutenant Harris.
Captain Cycle.
Staff Sergeant Thompson, Alpha Battery Supply Sergeant.
Elijah Cordero. I was in Alpha Battery from early 90s to mid 90s. Started out in commo, then went to the guns. Get a chance, go to the guns.
Cadet Michael.
Private Escutia.
Cadet Lincoln Miller.
Cadet Cromer.
Specialist Mink, former active duty from 101st Airborne, joined Alpha Battery in 2015, then went to Charlie late 2015.
Specialist Collins.
Sergeant Shepard. Sergeant Myers, promotable.
Sergeant Leapak.
Sergeant Lyons.
And my name is Sergeant First Class Dan Stigl, retired. I joined the battalion in December of '76 and retired in October of '99. And I've served in just about every battery this battalion has. And the best time I ever had was in A Battery, and they're my home. I said I was in every battery.
I got caught in an ambush in 1968 in Vietnam. And while I was laying there getting my ass kicked, I was reflecting on the modern volunteer army. And I thought to myself and my daughters, what is going on? What is the modern volunteer army? And I'm looking at it. You may not know it, but you are the modern volunteer army that started back there when they stopped having the draft. And why are we here? Because we love this country. And we're going to continue to do it and do everything we can for it. And the reason I'm getting up here making an ass of myself, I want you folks that are here knowing my daughters and my wife went through this period while I was in Vietnam 2 different times. And they took a lot of crap from everybody. The families are the ones that are going over there to Qatar or wherever it is. They're going to be going through the same thing. And we're a member of the post-4015 of the Newburgh Veterans of Foreign Wars, and we're trying to become advocates for the people, the families that are going over there. And we want you to know that the VFW is here to help you folks. And you around here, there's ways that we can get together, have a presence for the kids here, look out for their families while they're here. And all of us in this A Batteries group, we can get together to help the families that are not here now. You have a table up here, the missing person. Every one of those members of the organization that's overseas and they're at Fort Bliss right now, they're going through that same stuff. We can't forget those people. We have an obligation, and the VFW, and specifically the Newburgh VFW, we have promised to take care of the people out of McMinnville. And we can take care of you too, because I remember when this building was built, I was in that office up there, 1st Battalion, 218th Field Artillery. Guess what? It was an Honest John Rocket Battalion back there. Remember that? This armory. We had 3 battalions of artillery in here. And we've got to maintain this because we love the country. Don't we, Dave? let's take care of these people that are going, the families that are here. Don't forget them. Step out where you can. As leaders, make sure that they're not forgotten.
As Hub mentioned, we do have a table up here in front of us. Tonight we have some honored guests who cannot be with us, so we remember them in this way. As you entered the dining area, you may have noticed a table at the front raised to call your attention to its purpose. It is reserved to honor our missing loved ones, our missing comrades in arms, and for veterans past who are no longer with us. This honor ceremony symbolizes that they are with us here in spirit. Some here in this room were very young when they were called to serve. However, all Americans should never forget the brave men and women who have answered our nation's call to serve and served the cause of freedom in a special way. I would like to take this time to explain the meaning of the items on this special table. The table to show our never-ending concern for this special table, or for our missing soldiers. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call to duty. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the life of each of the missing and their loved ones and friends who keep the faith while waiting answers. The vase is tied with a red ribbon that represents the love of our country, which inspired them to answer the nation's call. A yellow candle symbolizes the everlasting desire for a joyous reunion with loved ones and friends, and the light of hope which lives in the hearts to illuminate their way back into the arms of a grateful nation. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. And there is salt, symbolic of the tears shed by those who wait. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith to sustain those missing from our country, founded as one nation under God. The glass is inverted, for they cannot toast with us tonight. The chair is empty, for they are not here. Remember, we call them comrades, brothers, sisters, and friends. Do not let them be forgotten, for surely they have not forgotten us. Let us now pause for a moment of silence to honor those who are serving and those that are not here with us tonight. I'd like to end with the motto of the battalion, per angusta, ad augusta, through difficulties to things of honor. At this time, I would like to ask Major Fitz to come forward. He's got some interesting tidbits and information about our outstanding history of the battery.
Okay, for all of you under the age of 30, what I'm about ready to say is one of those things that when you get to my age, you go, God, I wished I'd listened to him back then. We're going to talk about the history of Battery A. Now, Colonel Schmidt over there was recognized by the artillery school as the finest battalion commander in the artillery. He doesn't know this stuff. There's only two people in the room that can correct me. Jim Rooney, there's only two men in the world that ever were first sergeant and commander of A Battery. Jim Rooney, who's sitting right there, And the other guy's uniform is out in that cabinet in the hall, General Jackson, who, by the way, he's been at A Battery dinners when I was there. The other person, where's Ed Ward? Okay, those two guys will probably correct me after this is over. But I'm going to add a little urban legend. We all know that A Battery goes back to 3 February 1866. Urban legend says that prior to 1866, the volunteers in the state of Oregon had a section of field artillery. 2 guns were taken off a sailing ship that couldn't pay its bills before it left, and a local blacksmith mounted the 2 4-pounders on wheels, and then thought it was cool enough when he saw a picture of caissons. That's the part that the tail of the gun hangs on. Okay? The limber is the part that hauls the ammo. He built caissons for both guns to make a section of artillery. Now, I say that's urban legend because that story was told to me by Art Shade, who enlisted in A Battery in 1936 when Civil War veterans still attended the A Battery dinner because of their experience with the volunteers. Now, unlike Elizabeth Warren, who believed her mother, I'm telling you up front, I don't know if I always believed Art Shade, but I think that the volunteers had artillery. Art had a lot of other stories, which I won't repeat now, but I will tell you, we got federal recognition in 1866, but if you go into the records the Secretary of State has, we had an adjutant general starting in 1847. So it stands to reason if we had an adjutant general, we had an organized militia with volunteers, and if you have a militia, they sure as shit want some guns to go with them, because the Indians were scared to death of the guns. We became a state in 1859, but we didn't get federal recognition until 1866. I went into the ordnance records and looked up to see if we'd ever got weapons shipped to us by the Ordnance Department prior to 1866, and we didn't. But do you know Confederate states were shipped weapons as late as April 2nd of 1861? Do you think that maybe had something to do with who the Secretary of War was prior to becoming President of the Confederacy? The urban legend is that there was a vote in the Oregon legislature in early 61. We became a state in 59. In early 61, we were 1 vote in the House away from joining the Confederacy. That may be an urban legend, so don't bet money on anything I tell you on that line. But I know for a fact President Lincoln kept a full regiment of cavalry in Oregon all during the Civil War. In fact, the most expensive building in the state of Oregon during the Civil War was the post commander's house at Fort The Dalles. And I think back then, General Bray wasn't a cavalry regimental commander, a brigadier? Not a general, but a brigadier, between colonel and... Excuse me for putting you on the spot. You know, I gave you a bad time for not joining the cavalry and going into the infantry, so... Anyway, 3 February 1866, we were organized as Portland Light Artillery. 23 May 72, our name was changed Battery A Oregon Artillery. 1 July 98, we were named the Light Battery A Oregon Volunteers, and we were federalized for the Spanish-American War. They really didn't think Teddy Roosevelt would end it that quick. And by the way, he did not command the cavalry. He was the executive officer. Anyway, 15 October, A Battery was released from federal service. Wasn't much of a war. The Moros in the Philippines tried to screw that up and keep it running a little longer, though. But 16 October 1898, we became Battery A Field Artillery after being released from federal service. 26 June 1916, we were federalized for service along the Mexican border, and we went down there, and in the files, we have pictures of very large piles of empty beer cans, because it was the Oregon National Guard down there. By the way, did they take their guns with them to the Mexican border? Major Ward, did they take their guns? They didn't take their guns because they were issued muzzle loaders, and it was 1916, and all the rest of the artillery was breech loading. In February of 17, they returned to Oregon, and they spent their time down on the border in blocking positions while Blackjack Pershing chased all over Mexico and never found Pancho Villa. August of 1917, A Battery again was federalized. 10 September 1917, A Battery was consolidated with elements of the 4th Infantry from South Dakota National Guard as Battery A 147 Field Artillery, 41st Infantry Division. 41st Infantry Division was Oregon, Washington, Idaho National Guards. In June, A Battery was transferred to the 26th Division, which still exists today. The brigade exists. It is from New England. Later in June, we were transferred to the 32nd Division, which is Wisconsin and Michigan National Guard. And we were demobilized from federal service when we were brought back from Europe at Camp Dodge, Iowa. 4 February 1921, Battery A 148th Field Artillery came into existence. 18 May 25, Battery A became Battery A 218th Field Artillery 75 millimeter, which I assume was a pack howitzer. 5 April 29, we became A Battery 1st Battalion 218th Field Artillery, 75 millimeter pack howitzer. 13 November 29, we got the 5.5s and became big artillery. 16 September 40, we were federalized. Many of the people sitting in this room with gray hair that served in the 218th, we served alongside people that were federalized in the 218th in 1940. They knew it was coming. The next step is the lineage and honors says that A Battery became D Battery, 2nd Battalion, 204th Artillery in 1942. All the talking I've done with veterans, they've never ever mentioned this. One of the things that's unusual is unit designations change, but don't always go along with where the people go. But there's a very, very strong rivalry between the veterans of A Battery 965 and A Battery 218 during World War II. And I've been to a lot of these dinners and sit and listen to them. 1 March 43 was when A 965 supposedly came into existence, or at least that's when the lineage and honors were given. And the battalion was around till it was deactivated in November of 45. It was reactivated in the Oregon Guard as A965 in 49. Then in 59 is when the 965 disappeared and 218 took over the lineage and honors. The campaign ribbons for World War I for A Battery: Asny, Marne, Oise, Meuse, Argonne, Champagne, Alsace, Lorraine. The big one you should have known about was the Argonne Forest, and A Battery was there. In World War II, A Battery 965 was in the battles of Normandy, northern France, Rhineland, Ardennes, Alsace, Central Europe. Starting out with the battle streamer for Normandy means that A965 came across the beach at Normandy. In World War I, A Battery received the French Croix de Guerre with Gilt Star for their service at Asny, Marne, Osny. In World War II, A Battery 965 received the Presidential Unit Citation for their service supporting the 7th Armored Division at St. Vith, V-I-T-H. Everybody knows about the Battle of the Bulge and the Screaming Eagles being surrounded at Bastogne. What they don't know is that when the snow fell at Bastogne, the weather wasn't that cold, and there was 6 inches of snow on the ground with mud underneath. The Germans couldn't leave the roads to attack, and the Americans couldn't get onto the roads to retreat. The 7th Armored Division held off 2 panzer divisions at a little town in France called Vith, V-I-T-H, because 5 roads came together at Vith and 1 went out to the coast. That's why the Germans were stopped, is because the 965 at St. Vith. One of the last veteran of A Battery 965 serving in Europe died this summer. And because I'm old, my name just went blank. Clarence Gablehouse. It only happens to you when you get old. I talked to Clarence about his service in the Battle of the Bulge, and he only told me 2 things. There was dead bodies laying everywhere, and my God, it was cold. And that's all he would tell me. But when his stepson took him to Normandy in June one year, the people in Europe asked about the veterans coming back, and they researched Clarence and saw that he was in the 965 artillery at Vith, and his name was printed in the orders of the day, and he was given a commendation by the commanding general of the Belgian army for his service at Vith, standing up to the Germans. Battery A, 2nd Battalion, 218th Artillery, was on board a ship in the Pacific Ocean when Pearl Harbor was bombed. Battery A's howitzers that they were issued in the United States are on the bottom of the harbor in Sydney, Australia, because the troops unloading them were drunk. Again, that's urban legend from people that were there when they were unloading the howitzers. No, they didn't drop them in the bay one at a time. They were putting them on the barge, and they didn't center them correctly. And when they set the sixth howitzer on the barge, the whole barge turned upside down. Battery A, 2nd Battalion, 218th Artillery, has made more amphibious landings than any other artillery unit in the American Army. They have battle streamers for Papua New Guinea, Luzon, the southern Philippines, and they have a presidential citation from the President of the Philippines. Don't confuse the units when you're talking. So when you're at St. Barbara's dinner with the 2nd Battalion, 218th Artillery, and they say something about being at Bastogne, look at them and smile and say, only if you're with A Battery. And as the guys told me from the 965 before they all died, the real A Battery. Thank you.
I've been doing this for a long time. I retired in '99, have been active in the association since then in one way or another. I've been the association commander several times. Somewhere along the line, I got the idea that, you know, we have some funds within the association, and we have people that want to make donations to us to support the soldiers, which is what the association does. It supports the soldiers of Battery A. And back in 2009, 2010, I got the idea that, you know, let's make this official. And so a group of us got together and put together an association that is a nonprofit association. It's a military organization association. Donations can be written off on your taxes. But more important is the funds that we have go to support members of the Battery, support their families. Every year we have an honorarium that we give to one soldier that is selected by the Battery Command. And the funds we have just are continuing to build on that to support our soldiers. This year, we had a little bit of confusion with the battalion being deployed, with the Battery being deployed. And one individual was misinformed, and I apologize from the bottom of my heart that this happened. But we felt that through no fault of his own, you know, he was thinking that, you know, he was going to be the soldier that was selected to be the 2019 Honor Man. At this time, I'd like to have Specialist Hergert come on up. Again, I apologize from the bottom of my heart that the information went out wrong for that. I really do appreciate you coming out tonight. We appreciate the service that you've given to A Battery. You've heard of our history. The only way we're going to continue that history is everybody in this room. You know, we've had individuals pass away that we no longer have that information. We no longer have that first-person recall of what happened. Thanks to Major Fitz, Major Ward, we're able to, you know, do the best we can to keep that history alive. And the only way we can do that is with the support from the current soldiers in the Battery. On behalf of the A Battery Association, I would like to award you, you know, this. It's not much, okay? But, you know, we do give an award out to everybody, one soldier every year. And again, I apologize that the miscommunication happened, but I appreciate your service, and you know, blessings and for your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The individual that was selected this year by the Battery staff is Specialist Aaron Lewis. Specialist Lewis is currently deployed with the Battery. We've been in contact with him, and what we will do is the honorarium that we give out to the individual, since he's not here, he said it's okay for us to give it to his wife. Don't know why he would want that, but hey, just share with the family. But to Specialist Lewis, we have some funds for you. Hope it helps with your family. There will also be a plaque with your name and a certificate, and we'll get that to your wife. We've made arrangements with the Battery Command to connect with you and get you those items. At this time, we have one final item of business we need to take care of. Every year, we need to go through and elect our officers for the association. The board of directors have selected, and the individuals have confirmed that they do indeed want to continue or serve in those positions. The positions this year we have to fill is the chairman position, my position. The secretary, Colonel Hawkins, has graciously agreed to continue in that capacity. And our member-at-large person number 2, Sergeant Fittis, has again graciously accepted the responsibility to be part of our association. I also want to thank Sergeant Fittis, retired Sergeant Fittis. Thank you for putting together the video for our dinner this evening, so that the soldiers that are deployed in Qatar can also be part of our dinner at their availability during their time overseas. So with one last thing, for all those in favor of continuing to, my mind just went, all those in favor of the individuals being part of the board of directors for Battery A, Portland Light Artillery, signify by saying aye. And all those opposed? And we're it for another year. Any comments from the groups? Any last words before we adjourn for the evening? Okay.
Mm-hmm. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how you want to think you're going to quit, because I did, and I'm going to tell you what, don't do it. The best thing to do is stay in and never quit. 218 Field Artillery, hoo-wah! Let's hear hoo-wah! Come on, man, it's a week hoo-wah, let's hear hoo-wah! Never quit. I did over 20 years, and I know you can. So nobody quits in this battalion. Hooah!
Thanks, Karsner. Appreciate that. Little motivational speech there. That concludes our dinner this evening, and look forward to seeing all your bright, smiley faces a year from now. Good night.